volunteered for it. Thank you for being a part of that ceremony, and because you made it a very special day for all those graduates. Yes, thank you. So everyone's had this plan for a little less than 24 hours now. Let me say up front, we knew, and I knew, that anything that we put forward was not going to have rousing support. Anything like this is difficult. And we also knew that we needed to change pretty dramatically in order to meet the moment and where we're at. And that's what this draft does. So I take responsibility for the recommendations that are in here. The board will take responsibility for the decisions that they make. And I'm here to kind of listen to your feedback and to hear from you. I do have some slides that I want to kind of share just top level. Let me also give one other piece of news. So we just got back from Salem this morning. The Higher Education Subcommittee of the Emergency Board voted on a unanimous vote and a bipartisan vote to release the first half of the funding for SOU, which is fantastic. So that's a good start. Yep. And I will tell you that they are going to closely monitor what we do with this and releasing that other piece and what happens for us long term. Okay. I think a lot of us feel this, that we're sitting at a crossroads. We have to do something transformative. We knew that. We knew that we couldn't just become a smaller version of ourselves. We had to become a different version. It doesn't mean that we can't honor our legacy either, and I want to make it clear that that's something we can and should do as part of this. For those of you who've been around for a long time, you've been through all of these, and I know the intellectual and emotional toll that takes, and that this is really to address this problem. There are some things that we should be thinking about that shaped this. Our assets are real. We are a special place, and we have special gifts in this place that we should take advantage of. But that market is shifting below our feet constantly, and all of us are feeling it. All of us across the state are feeling it. Schools across the country are feeling it. And we can't use 20th century systems to solve 21st century challenges. Okay. The plan offers a proposed mission and a proposed vision. This is for us to discuss as a campus, as an institution. And you'll see a lot of this is reflected in not only the inputs that we got from student, faculty, staff groups, community groups, but these are kind of the themes that kept hitting over and over again. Rogue Valley as a classroom, mentorship as method, and practical and experiential work, giving students real hands-on things, and no matter what the discipline is, hands-on connected activities in the community. By the way, a lot of this, I give credit to the work that the faculty did, academic visioning, all of that stuff that happened last year too. And a proposed vision. Small by choice, distinctive by design, financially resilient, and rooted in place. Real work, real mentors, human capacities. So these are the things you've seen in my emails, right? Connected to community, streamlined pathways, flexible options, human connected approach. It's easy to say that, it's harder to do it, right? So how do we operationalize that? Let me hit pause here because I know that there have been a lot of discussions on campus in the last 24 hours asking about the granularity of the plan. Hey, we wanted to see, no one has said this specifically to me, I've kind of heard this. We wanted you to have specific names. Who are the people in the plan that are identified? There's 3 reasons why this plan does not do that. 1, it's a strategy document. It's not a tactical document, it's a strategy document. It's to give us a vision for what we need to be, right? There's more granularity in this than there is in the recommendations that Deloitte gave. right? It's much more specific, but it's a strategy document. 2, we have partnerships with 2 unions. And we need to be respectful of the collective bargaining agreements with both of those entities. So there's a process that we follow. And this is part of that process. So we have to make that run its course. And then 3, there are, and I want to set realistic expectations. There may be some things in here that we can do better than this. And we should be open to what those things are. So what I didn't want to do is give something that was set in concrete and hand something to the board that's in concrete that doesn't give us a chance to think smarter about it. Now, I will say, here's 2 things that I'm not really willing to do. I'm not willing to scratch this and start over because the last 5.5 weeks were enough. The other is I'm not willing to go backwards and to put half of this back. Because we know where that leads us, right? It leads us to another notch on that timeline, and we're not going to let that happen. So that's why the level of detail is the level of detail, and not more than that. Community engagement. You all know this. There was so much feedback. I really appreciate the work that we did. It's not perfect. Let me also say that. We said, okay, we had from May 8th until June 15th. How do we get as many voices into the mix as we can? How do we give agency to individuals and groups and sharing governance partners and union leaders? Like, how do we do that? We did the best we can to try to facilitate all of that stuff. The work groups, the student sessions, all of it was designed to try and bring in as many good ideas as we could. The restructure is really our take at how we do things differently. By the way, this is to me one of the biggest departure points from the recommendations in the option path from Deloitte. And by the way, that's not a critique on what they did. But the way that they did it was to look at it very, I think the critique I heard was 2-dimensionally. Stop doing this, just do this. For students, that was not popular. It was, hey, if there's a way for us to continue certain pathways, then give us those opportunities, and you, university, think differently about how you deliver it. That was a fair critique, right? So what we see in the plan is really us holding on to as many of the things as we could do, but to structurally change it so that we are achieving better results in 100 and 200 level classes, in really facilitating interdepartmental collaboration, other things. By the way, I'll say this publicly, not just because the media is here, and not just because people are online. The reason why we had and have had so many different statistics courses at this school, as an example, is not the faculty's fault. It's the university's fault. It's because of the way we've structured our system. By the way, not unique to SOU. This is how universities do it around the country. We compare academic departments against other academic departments. And so if you're being compared and how many student credit hours are you teaching, well, then it's probably to your benefit to teach your own statistics course, right? Because you're probably going to be compared to someone else. Well, that's part of the problem. Not faculty's problem, our problem. So it's how do we break those things down? Speaking of online, I apologize, I should have said this before. If you are tuning in online and you have questions that you'd like to ask as part of this, then please send an email to campusconversation@sou.edu. And as soon as I'm done with these slides, probably 5 minutes from now, then Mary, Katie, and Jen will come around with microphones for people who are in the room. And then Mary, Katie will read the ones that are online. Okay, student affairs. And by the way, all of these things are controversial. And all of these things are painful. So I want to make sure you understand that I understand that too. Centralizing student success coordinators. Everything that has an outward face, this is a theme in this document, the push is to make them self-sustaining. That's not easy. as we think about youth programs and Schneider Museum and athletics and pushing them into self-support, that's very, very difficult. So we're not taking that for granted either. And as a university, that's one of our challenges, in that all of the other things that we spend education and general fund money on, our landscape doesn't allow us to do that the way we used to do that. So we have to focus on the central mission. Okay, in administrative footprint, really reorganizing business services, info technology, smaller SOU, looking at facilities management, and caveat, we haven't let go of partnerships with other Oregon universities and our community college partners. The plan does not count that as savings. If we are able to achieve those things, that will be over and above what we're doing in the plan. Athletics, very similar. Getting them moving far closer to not being dependent on education and general funds. There were some donations that came in that really helped them, and we're very, very grateful for that. That doesn't solve that issue. It kicked it to the right. So it gives them time to now, they're going to have to make, they're already making cost management, but they're going to have to make additional cost management, and each of their athletic teams are going to have to hit fundraising goals in order to keep moving. The farm, JPR, and Schneider Museum, as I said, all. And by the way, I will say this, and each one of these organizations, JPR is a great example. As February hit, the executive director at JPR said, okay, what do we have to do? And really worked to knowing that that was going to be the goal, and worked to find a path to do that. This is sobering, and I'm conscious of that. These numbers are likely going to change a little bit over the next few weeks. It's just giving you the blueprint of where it is right now. Speaking of that, I'll get to this later. I have, just in the last 24 hours, I've already started to get, hey, Rick, this didn't make sense to me. Colleen gave me something. Josh Rolfing gave me something. Please keep those coming. If you see something that doesn't make sense, call it out, please, because it's probably something that we need to fix with it. Jackie Apodaca did that. So please get them coming. And matter of fact, the last slide will be just a way to do that, to send us that feedback. This will take place. This isn't going to happen overnight. This will take place over the next 12 months. And there'll be an implementation plan that goes very specifically through that. Okay. All of those things are you read about in the plan. I wanted to foot stomp the last one. There are a lot of people out here right now saying, is this going to do it? Is this going to solve it? Here's what's going to be different about this. Every month, this campus is going to get an update. Our board is going to get an update. That update will be, hey, here's what we projected month by month cash flow, and here's what it looks like with us implementing the Vitality Plan. We're going to have, as part of the state support, we're going to have a project manager whose role for the next 12 months, one specific role, is to make sure that we are implementing this plan. Those monthly financial updates and operations updates will be a built-in accountability mechanism on me to make sure that we're implementing this plan. The state has made it very clear that we have to be financially self-sustainable by the summer of 2027. That's the target. And that's not negotiable, right? We have to do that. Anyone that has edits, President's Office at sou.edu. Easy for me to say. Mary Katie's going to have to answer all of those, but she is ready and willing to do that. Okay, I know that's all I have. I know that there's a lot of questions, comments, thoughts, opinions. I'm happy to hear all of it. So Mary, Katie, and Jen will go around. Do we have anything online yet? Yeah. Okay. Any initial questions, thoughts? Yeah, Luana.
Hold on.
Thank you. You say the Rogue Valley is the classroom. Now, I presume this is based on the percentage of students that come here from the Rogue Valley, because a lot of our students, they don't come from the Rogue Valley. How is this going to affect them? Because when they graduate and leave here, they'll be going back to their hometowns. Will we be preparing them for what they need to do anywhere and not just the Rogue Valley?
Yeah, it's a great question, Luana. So let me start that answer, and then I'll ask whether we have any faculty or academic leaders who would like to address it too. My take on that is we've talked about what the technology, the technological revolution that's happening in higher education right now. What are the things, for example, and I know AI is a four-letter word with a lot of people. What are the things that AI can't do? Right? What are the things that it can't do? It's having a hard time doing this, right? And making human connection. When we talk about Rogue Valley as the classroom, it doesn't mean that it's just for students who are from the Rogue Valley, and it doesn't mean that all students have to stay in the Rogue Valley. We'd love for that to happen. What it means is that while students are with us as part of their academic journey, they are physically connected to real world things that our valley allow. If you are studying biology, a good example is our work that HEMA and Chaya and others are doing in a partnership with local tribes and looking at watersheds, and faculty who are doing that. Karen and the wildlife corridor. Like it's hands-on practical applications for student experience. And by the way, even though they're using the Rogue Valley as a classroom, the things that they're learning they can apply anywhere, right? That's the concept. And I would also say, again, easy for me as the president to say this, it should be independent of discipline. Like everything that we do, there should be ways in which to offer that connective tissue. Business does a really good job of this, right? And the way in which they are intentional about connecting students with outside entities. And and this is in my perfect world, every capstone that we offer is, and we do a lot of this already, isn't in the theoretical. It's in the helping our local community solve strategic issues. That's a long answer, but that's to me, that's how I define. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? Or anyone want to push back on that at all? Because I'm open to the... Yeah, please.
I just want to take a minute to advocate for the Human Service Program as having been doing this type of work long term.
Yeah.
And I'm the coordinator of the Human Service Program, and it is to be cut. We have good enrollments, we have a decent amount of majors, we have a large cohorts from RCC coming in, strong connection with RCC. I know them personally, I go over there, I meet the students. RCC's invested in upping their cohorts, and they're expecting to transfer here, and now they can't. But anyways, we have been doing this type of work in the community. A lot of our students do come from the Rogue Valley. We have a lot of adult learners, sort of the target population I think that Deloitte identified. Yeah. And so we have the largest practicum requirement at the university for undergraduates at 270 hours. That is the cornerstone of the students' experience, is being out in the community, and it's a guided experience. So that is happening already, and I just don't quite understand why it's being cut.
Yeah, no.
So that's my question, and I'm wondering too. My second ask is, like, you said this is not in concrete, but that you're not going to go back. But I think there's a way to go forward with behavioral health at SOU that doesn't include cutting the human service program. I think there's some really creative things that can happen, and I know the state's invested. They gave, $300,000 for the Institute. So I hear that SOAN faculty, Deloitte marked us to be cut, and so that I think is the goal there. And I'm a SOAN faculty member, sociology, anthropology. But I just don't think that targeting the human service program and taking away the experiential piece that we're looking to have, that we've been doing, is really the way forward.
Yeah, I appreciate Kelly. So let me I want to be careful in how I set expectation. When I say that we're not going back, right now this plan in cost savings and revenue, it's $20,178,000. What I'm saying is I don't want 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, for this to be a $15 million plan. Like I don't think we can. I don't think that's palatable. I don't think it's palatable to state. I don't think it's palatable for what we. If there is a smarter way, again, I don't want to get too much hope up. But if there is a smarter way, so in my head I say, okay, so here's sociology, anthropology that we're going to hold on to. Here's a new certificate in counseling. Here is X, Y, Z. Right? Understanding, and you make a really good point that human service has a direct connection, right, to community. If there is a smarter way to do it and still hold on to and still keep our eye on the target for how we do it, then I'm open to that conversation. What it can't be is, Rick, you got to just put this back and find somewhere else. Like we need to. All of this is about thinking just fundamentally differently about how we deliver it. So I'm open to that, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Rick. I know this is probably a very heavy lift, and I know it wasn't easy for you to put together, and there's got to be a lot of angst and emotion that goes along with it. So with that said, I worry in the readings, in the first readings of this, that we're able to actually get to the number that we're looking for. And there's a couple bellwether numbers that stand out to me at this point, or concepts. One of them tags into human services. It's things like we cut the financial mathematics degree or combo degree. It's a program that doesn't take any additional resources. Takes some really smart kids that are mathematically inclined, puts them through some business stuff, and makes them very accessible to the business employers of the Valley. Supposedly what it is exactly that we're trying to accomplish. It's like a program that we should be putting energy behind instead of cutting. The other one that worries me out of that is our class sizes. I just need somebody to explain to me 40 students in some of these classes, the writing intensive classes are going to, I don't know how they're going to do that. I'm not even sure how that's going to work with sizable classes like I have, and 20 in the upper division. Those numbers don't seem sustainable. They don't even seem reachable at times. And when we start designing that kind of a curriculum and that kind of a process, we're going to be hurting choices and timing of degrees and that type of thing. And so we're just going to sort of be hurting ourselves further rather than helping ourselves forward. The last thing I'd say is I read the article today in the paper. I've heard all this discussion about transformative university. And, you know, one of the things I wish we had done is I wish we had made a stronger statement to the state and to the world. There's nothing, you've said it a number of times, there's nothing wrong with SOU, that what's right with SOU won't fix.
Yeah.
We don't need to be transformed. I think people's opinions of what we do here pretty much need to be transformed. They need to look deeper and closer. And they need to be more willing to help us along with what it is we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So let me. So I appreciate all of those comments. Let me work my way backwards. and I mean, just having come from Salem today, I want to be careful not to overpromise what we're hearing from state leaders. And Dennis knows this as well as anyone. So there is a bill that is going through, the House bill that's going, that was passed last session, House Bill 4124, sponsored by Representative Marsh, our local state rep, that is facilitating a study about higher ed in the state. It's really not so much on OHSU, but certainly the 7 public universities and the 17 community colleges in the state, and figuring out how does the state treat higher ed? I mean, we know the answer to that. The thing that gives me hope is that people are talking about higher education in ways that they haven't in the 4.5 years that I've been here. Not even close. I mean, they're really talking about higher ed for the first time and not taking us for granted. At the same time, and this is going to make me sound like I'm super jaded already, we've been jumping up and down on tables for 5 years now. And the people who came before me were doing that too. And that hasn't caused the watershed moment yet. And so this is to your second point, the reason why we're transforming is because it's clear. It was my quote in the New York Times. Like, no one from Salem is coming to rescue us. No one from DC is coming to rescue us. And so we have to kind of figure this out and fight like heck to make sure that message is starting to resonate. And the class size thing, that is a really good point. And by the way, I'm glad that everyone is conscious of this. The big departure from the Deloitte recommendation, the big departure is twofold. One is that, well, threefold. And this is not an indictment on the contractor at all, on the consultant. You've heard me talk about in here, one of the biggest critiques of that recommendation, I think it's a critique that the board had, was that it seemed two-dimensional. Stop doing these 10 programs and just move everything over. What we got from community, what we got from students, what we got from faculty and staff was like, you could do it differently, and you could still offer these programs, and you could still keep student pathways, but it means that you're going to have to figure this stuff out, right? Dennis is right. This is a risk for us. To basically say, and the plan, the draft does this. It says, hey, we're going to set, and by the way, it's saying generally. Generally, we're going to shoot for 40 students in lower division courses. That's a big change for us. Generally, we're going to try to shoot for 20 in higher division courses. Now, there's some exceptions because in education, in some other thing, there are licensing things. There are some things that by design have to limit that, and we're going to honor that. And I also don't want to rush to conclusions. One of the things that I know, and I'll ask Casey if she wants to weigh in on this, but one of the things that I know is going to happen is work groups throughout the summer with faculty who are willing to come in, and I think they're actually going to be supported to do this work, is to start to solve this issue. And because it's easy for me to say, okay, hey, in all of social sciences, like, let's take all of the kind of intro work and try to fuse them together. Easy for me to say. Much different thing to operationalize that. And your other point on that is, what does it do for a student? Because, and I think this was Melissa's comment too, it could look like there are just fewer courses now, even though they're bigger courses. So we're going to have to be laser focused on, when do we offer those courses? Are they deconflicted so that students have multiple options? All of that work has to happen starting now, in order for us to have that pretty much solved by next summer, and hopefully before that. So that's a risk, and we don't have we don't have a blueprint for that yet. That's work that has to happen. Lastly, you talked about specific programs, and very similar to human services. In every one of those areas, and again, this is where we're open to the conversation. In financial mathematics, we say, okay, well, we're still going to hold on to applied mathematics, and we still have a really strong business department. Are there ways in which those things happen. If, and by the way, not to overpromise, if it doesn't change the picture at all, and it doesn't change the footprint at all, and we can offer that major without any other burden and all the classes to work, then we should be open to it. I don't know that that's true, so I want us to have that conversation. I'm glad we're having this conversation because all of those points are things that we have to keep in mind.
Hey, Rick, do we want to first take an online question,
Sure.
and then we can move to more in person? Okay. When the financial crisis was first announced, you shared at a town hall that there would be accountability coming for the decisions and actions that contributed to the situation. Can you please provide an update on that, if anything has been implemented to date?
Yeah, great question. So some of this was actually done by design. So when the appropriations bill was passed in the state legislature, it created a path that really, and I take responsibility for this, it created a path that we should have been on already. And that is, it said, okay, Rick, you have to give the state and the board monthly updates on everything going on with finances. You have to have monthly cash flows. You have to, by the way, there's a burden on us now that's unlike any other university in the state. We're the only ones having to do that. If I had a magic wand and could go back, we would have instituted this 5 years ago, right? To actually have that and put the pieces in place to be able to do that. So I think in that slide, what this process is going to require is an accountability that will be not just with the board and not just with the state, but with all of you too. So that's something that I take very seriously. It's something that the board is going to hold me accountable to, and that I will hold our teams accountable to as well.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
So, you're talking a lot about class sizes and all that. I'm also thinking about, to my understanding, cutting programs, whatnot, is that if we're already in a degree or a certificate, what have you, and then it gets cut, like legally you have to still give us that regardless, right? So I have certificates in which there are courses outside of my major I have to take in music. There's plenty of others that also are getting cut, right? So I'm just curious how we're going to substitute that in our own majors on top of the fact that you're cutting staff and faculty numbers. So not only are you cutting that stuff, but then it's putting a load on those professors and stuff that already have to pivot because there is less faculty and staff. I'm just curious if there's an idea how that's going to be accomplished.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I don't want to sugarcoat and say that it's going to be easy for us to make the transition. I won't say that. I will say that the plan has tried to look at how specifically is it affecting students like you. How is it creating those pathways? What are the things? Music's a great example. And in music industry, right? The recommendations for Deloitte would have had us excise all of it out, right? We said, well, that's it, and clearly we heard from the community, that's unacceptable. If we sunset music industry and production and hold on to every other part of music, are there still pathways for students who want that as part of their work? Are there ways in which music still connects to digital cinema? Are there ways in which it still connects to theater? Are there ways in which that was the goal, right? If we don't have that, if there's a better way to do that, then I think we're open to that. Your other point is really also really well taken, and that is the issue that will come up, and it will be the issue. It'll be the central focus of our conversations in the summer and certainly in the fall is workload. Like that will be the thing. It gets back to Dennis's question about how do you go from something that we've done for 100 years and now start to change that model so quickly? Not easy to do. And so we've got to think about how we do that without absolutely burning everyone out in the process. I can't. I know that's a challenge, so I own that. If I may, and this is going to be selfish. there are a lot of students out there, and so for anyone who's watching, any student who's watching, any family member of a student who's watching, there's a really interesting dynamic that's happening right now at SOU. We have a new student pipeline, students coming out of K-12, students coming out of community colleges, students transferring to other schools. That is actually pretty exciting. I don't want to overpromise, but it's interesting. Like it seems like, and I'll look at Zach to shake his head if I say anything wrong. So that's on one side. That's great. Then we look at all of our current students. And when we look at how many of our current students right now are registered for the fall compared to how many of our current students were registered for the fall on June 16th last year, it's dramatically lower. So we have far fewer students now, current students, who have registered for the fall here with us. I think there's two things that explain it, and there's probably more, and I've actually heard there may be more. The third one is what you just said. One is that students wanted to wait to see this plan, right? They wanted to wait to see, okay, look, what's happening to music before I want to know what's going to happen to music before I register for class. And we understand that. So we have to be super aggressive now at reaching out like, hey, this is the draft. This is what the board's considering. Here are pathways for every student if you want it. The second one is the transition to Workday. And the fact that students are having to register, they have to do the onboarding process, and that's just another bureaucratic hurdle. The reason, this is again selfish, if you or someone you know is a current student and has not registered yet, please tell them to reach out to it. Whatever we have to do to make them confident that there is a pathway for them and that there are people who are here to be of service to them, we need to have that conversation as soon as possible. I will keep your point in mind about the burden that all of this transition is putting on faculty and staff, because you're right, and it is. Yeah.
Hi, Rick. I don't have a question, but I would invite you to finish your thought because I think it's important. You were talking about 3 departures from the Deloitte report that you're taking, and you gave us one, two-dimensional, and I'm waiting for 2 and 3.
Yeah, thank you. 2 is that there were things in the Deloitte recommendations that really were going to advocate for us to be a smaller version of our former self. It was basically just become a smaller, and it's part of the 2-dimensional, right? You're just going to be a smaller thing, but it's going to be exactly the same. The third one maybe is the biggest one, and that is, and it was one of the biggest critiques of the option path, was that of the $20-ish million plan that they recommended, almost half of it depended on things that were outside of SOU's control. It involved a partnership with a larger university to provide services for us on a fee basis. It looked at sharing admissions and recruiting and student services with Rowe Community College. It looked at changing medical benefits for employees, which for 2/3 probably of our employees, like I can't just push that button and make that change. So there were a lot of things that were everything that's in this plan, everything that this plan proposes, right? It's just a plan until you get to decide what we do with it. Everything this plan proposes, SOU can do on its own. We are in control of making this happen for ourselves. Actually, it gets back to Dennis's point, right? This is something we can do. It goes back to the question online about accountability too. What we didn't do in SOU Forward, and I accept responsibility for it, we didn't do in SOU Forward and we didn't do in Resiliency is, okay, what happens if something that you thought was going to happen doesn't happen? What if you thought you were going to achieve these savings and you achieved this much saving? What are you going to do? So the other thing that we have is a list of contingencies. And I'll give you one example. And it's not in the report. It's just other things that we need to, in order to be accountable, it's other things that we better be ready to do. One of the recommendations paths for Deloitte for administrative footprint involved us potentially outsourcing. That's a very, to some, I would say maybe to some of our SEIU partners, that's a 4-letter word too, right? So we have to be careful about that. That would be devastating on the staff. It basically would say, and because the third-party providers who do it aren't going to do one thing. It's it's almost a binary, all or nothing kind of proposal. So you would start thinking about everything support function-wise that we do and having someone else do it, not with state employees, but with their employees. It is, and I want to be very transparent with you, it is a contingency option. Like if we don't hit a mark, like it is something that we could consider down the road. It's not something I want to consider, but it's something, to be fair, that we should at least have as a contingency. So those are all ways in which our proposal differs from the option path. Yeah.
So I'm taking the music industry and certificate program.
You're taking which one?
The music industry and
Oh,
certificate
okay.
program.
Yeah.
And so what I'm wondering is, has any thought been given to actually using the music lab as a revenue center? There are a ton of musicians here who would love to record their stuff. I can also tell you, as someone who's had a career in IT, this software is really hard to learn, but it's invaluable for someone that is creatively inclined like that. So that's one thought I had. And then, are these classes going to be given at all for like other majors, other music majors or digital cinema majors? Or I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, great. So two points. So great questions. Let's tackle the first one first. So in terms of revenue generation, actually, I want to give credit to one of our other trustees, Hala Shepman, who we always have to be thinking about ways in which we can generate revenue, like those entrepreneurial ways to do it. One of the things that she did, and this was about a year ago in chemistry. Oh man, I'm not gonna get it right. It's some kind of spectrometer. It's a device that that for good reasons I don't have access to. And she looked at, hey, there are ways in which students use it for this many hours, but this is a device that could run 24 hours. And is there a way for other entities who might need it to use it, right? And more, selfishly, and to provide revenue to the institution to do it. I think we have to be open to all of those things, like you said. I think those are, and by the way, there were some community proposals that did that started talking about music labs and some other things. So I think we have to be open to all of those things. In terms of the other, I'm kind of out of my lane, so I want to be careful in terms of, hey, are there still MIP as classes that are going to be part of theater and other parts in the creative arts? I'm not sure how it's connected. I know that there was an intentionality to really keeping a vibrant music footprint as part of our future selves. But the specifics about how that's going to be connected, that's the part that I'm not positive yet. Do we want to share anything on that?
That's part of what the work of the faculty has to be. So that's where this summer there will be workshops for faculty to help develop the plan for the following academic year. And so starting in the fall, faculty will be looking at what those curriculum requirements, what the coursework will look like. So we don't have an answer for that quite yet, but that's part of the work of the faculty.
Oh, is it Sam? Is that right? Okay, I do want to, that reminded me of a question that Sam asked. So you brought up a really good point about, hey, what's for students in, this is if human service and music industry and production, if there are, if the plan stays the way it is, then part of that is also, okay, then how do we make sure and provide service for the students who are in those programs now? I will say there is a goal to be, and this is part of that accountability piece, there is a goal to be completed with this process by the summer of 2027. So we have to think about what that pathway looks like over the next year, and I think that'll be part of those workshops as well. So thank you for asking that. Yeah.
Hi, Rick.
Hi.
Tom Fagerholm, Theater Department. I wanted to give a word of caution about death by 1,000 cuts. And I know many departments and programs have been experiencing that over the last 4+ years. And theater has not been alone in that. And I can't speak towards the others as I'm only new faculty, 2 years. Since SOU Forward, there was a big reorganization in theater in which there are 4 new faculty that have come in that are not new, like early career members. We're all 4 of us mid-career professionals with a ton of experience that targeted Ashland or SOU because of the theater profile, which attracts students not only regionally but nationally. That idea of 1,000 cuts, we're at a precipice, at least in theater, of any more losses is likely to start a cascading event for enrollment. We're at about 180 students currently and growing, about 5 or more a year. Hopefully that's going to increase, but if we can't continue to promote that message and what we're offering, or have the time with an additional workload to reach out and recruit those students ourselves, we're likely to shrink drastically. Over half of our students could attrition. We are currently probably the best theater program in the tri-state region, at least Northern California, definitely Oregon, also Washington, and that's something that is considered in this valley, theater, the arts, as very important and a cornerstone of this institution. And if we continue to slice these different programs and cut back, we will lose not just a few students, but have catastrophic changes to that enrollment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Tom. And let me say 2 things on this. This is a conversation we need to have as a campus. In some way, there's a choice we have, right? And I don't want to make it a binary choice. That's not fair to you or me or anyone else. It gets back to Trustee Thalden's question, right? And the difference between these 2 visions, right? There is the, let's just do these 10 programs, and that's it. And there are, the big argument against that is that also slashes, because students don't want to be in a school if they don't have some music or some theater or some, XYZ, right? That's the argument there. The positive side is, in those, if we did say we're just going to do these 10 things, those 10 things would be pretty robust, right? So you have that dilemma. The other side is this, like, hey, we're transforming. We're going to offer a lot of different things, and we're going to offer a lot of different pathways to students. But it means that we have to think differently about 100, 200 level classes. It means we have to completely work on kind of downstream collaboration, all that stuff. But your point is well taken, because it also means that we're thinner, potentially, in everything, right? And we're relying on a couple of faculty kind of holding things up. And so that is if the argument is we're too extreme on the other side, we should have that conversation too, right? And it's hard for me to imagine what this is, right? Where is that middle ground? I'm biased. Let me just be clear. I'm biased. I like, as painful as this is, I am much more optimistic about what this plan will do than what the option path was going to do. I'm much more optimistic about what this can be. It doesn't mean that we have all the answers yet, but I know that we can. I know that this transformation can put SOU on a long-term healthy pathway. We just have to figure out those details, and it's not lost on me your point. So we have to figure out how to do that.
Hi, Rick.
Hi.
Thank you for having this. I'd just like to speak as a staff member. When I looked at the document, like everyone else, I was deeply saddened, but not surprised at how deep the cuts were going to be.
Yeah.
I'm from a program that's gotten cut, but what crushes me is that you attach numbers of reductions of FTE, no names, of course, but people on campus know who works where. And then today you said, well, those numbers are probably going to change. And it's that yo-yo over and over again that just crushes the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 3 plans that we've done in whatever. And I guess what I'm asking is, it doesn't seem to me that there is a right answer, a perfect answer to any of this.
Yeah.
But whatever we choose, I just ask that we act decisively and finish one of the plans.
Yeah.
And so people can know what their status is.
Yeah. So I really thank you for sharing that. And I nothing that I say is going to make this better. I recognize that. We have been in this room too many times having this conversation. I know that. And I was very clear, an early draft of this last week said, hey, this is the final. Like, I can't do that either, right? I can't. The thing that I can say is, especially knowing how much sacrifice, not just the people who have lost their jobs who wanted to stay here, but the people who were left and the sacrifices they've made too. That is something that I carry with me all the time. Not that makes it better, but it's not something that I disregard. I put that number up with all the. Every number there is someone who's got a family here and who wants to stay here, and so it's deeply personal for everybody. I know that. It's also deeply personal for the people who aren't part of this plan, but are connected to people who are part of this plan and who have been here for decades with people who are on that plan. So I'm conscious of that. The message that I got, and if you listen to the board meetings recently, it is, and you listen to the former chair of the Faculty Senate and Staff Assembly and our student leadership, they've all kind of said what you've said. It is basically like, Dennis says, last bite of the apple, right? It is, the state has to know that we're slaying this dragon. That we're really taking it to the ground this time. What I have to be careful of is we don't know the variables that are coming, 2 years down the road, 3 years down, because they're coming. But it does put us in a much better position to navigate it, for sure. And it will put us in a better position than any of the other universities, for sure. But it actually goes back to the question that came online too, and that is, how do we build a rhythm now of awareness for all of us so that we know those challenges before they smack us in the face? How do we know that in advance and take action early so that we're not dealing with it? Yeah, so thank you for that. Yeah.
Hi, President Bailey.
Hi.
One of the things after first reading it, first of all, I want to say I wasn't really expecting some of what was there based on the Deloitte plan and whatnot. So I want to say something positive, I guess, that I've, in that I saw that it being more student focused, and that's something I wasn't quite ready to see. I was kind of expecting more the extreme, closer to Deloitte, maybe not the full Deloitte, but the closer to Deloitte plan. So I understand there are some risks in going that direction. I think you've addressed them. But I want to say something positive first.
Okay. You're softening it up before you.
Yeah. The business services portion, I have some large concerns about. You have 15 classified staff that are in business services, and you're looking at cutting 8 of them. It's an area that struggled mightily through Workday, and at this point, you know, I don't know if you had consulted with folks that have been here a long time, who've been here before the service center was created, and talked to folks as to why it was and the pros and the cons of why that decision was made back in 2005. I don't know when it was before I came here. And I'm just not sure what the plan is there, because you know, the HR finance part of Workday and the budgets, I'm not sure they're at a place where it's feasible to make those types of cuts. And then you're pushing, and this is one thing. Another thing, the workload thing you've brought up, but it's pushing that load back onto the staff, and there's fewer staff to deal with it. And so it's just, that one just makes me totally shake my head, and I'm really at a loss. Like, how is that even going to work? And because all of that stuff is leading to some of the financial problems that we have, are we just going to dig ourselves further? And there were, you know, going back to it actually feels like SOU Forward when you were cutting accountants at a time when we needed more accountants. So that one just makes me shake my head, and just, I don't understand completely.
Yeah, it's a fair question. So, and I'm glad you brought up the analogy for SOU 4, because that was in a way Monday morning quarterback, but the lack of awareness that we had, kind of with some of these things, I can potentially attribute to what we did there. In all of the administrative footprint, the issue is service level, right? Ultimately, I mean, workload is tied very closely to it. And this is similar to what we talked about on the academic side with risk. This is the risk on the administrative side. It is okay, if we have this footprint in IT, and this footprint in HR, and this footprint in finance, and this footprint in payroll, and all of these other things, there is minimum's probably not the right word. There is an acceptable service level that we have to hit in every one of those areas, just in order for the university to function. In finance, it's particularly acute because of the downstream effects of not having the talent to be able to see those things. So I am open to, and by the way, this was not me looking and saying, okay, I think this is what the picture should look like. It was everyone's input saying, you know what, we think we can do it with this. If we can't, then we have to know early, and we have to start doing some of the other options, right? By the way, it doesn't necessarily mean we wipe out all the staff and go third party. It doesn't mean that. But it might mean, hey, let's explore a partnership with, and I'll just call it out, with the other Workday school in the state, right, for some of these functions. Maybe that's the answer. Those are conversations that we'd have to have with SEIU. Those are conversations we'd have to have with the state, with the HEC, with a future partner. But I want all of you to hear this. If we can't offer that acceptable service level, then I think we have to just own it and make a change and figure out what the best change is to do. Because I agree, what we can't do is is cut ourselves into a place where we can't even provide the service that we need to. That's a fair comment.
The other thing that I'll highlight there is that that's an area where you have a high manager administrative footprint, and you're taking all the people on the ground doing the actual work, and you're not at all looking at the five, if after these cuts, you're looking at like 4 or 5 managers and like 7 workers, like people doing the actual work on the ground. And not that the managers aren't working and doing all they can, but it just seems to be really, really, really heavily skewed towards management in that area, especially after these cuts. And so that's something that was highlighted in the work group, but was not addressed at all in this plan.
Okay. No, I appreciate that feedback. And you know what? I will say it's a similar. So in academic leadership, one of the things that this plan is recommending is moving to one dean, right? One dean of faculty. And in that, I think there are a lot of chairs and faculty who are excited about that, but then are also super nervous, right? Because then it's, okay, well then are the chairs now going to be responsible for all of the things that the deans used to have to do? Like we have to think about what that, because I know chairs don't want to deal, well, I don't want to speak for all of them. I don't think they want to deal with a lot of the administrative stuff that deans would do. So all of those things we have to explore. And by the way, I'm open to it. I think Carson's open to it. We're open to, if there's a different way to explore that, then let's have that conversation.
At some point, though, it needs to be described what exactly the plan is. I don't know what it would even look like with 7 people and like 4 managers. Like, how are they going to do that work?
The Business Intelligence Office? Yeah, we can have that conversation.
Yeah, if somebody could explain it, then we could start to wrap our head around
Yeah.
it, whether it's even a good plan at all.
Yeah.
To even choose, to put up other opportunities.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yes, so this kind of is tagging on to what Steve was just saying. The plan clearly, everybody understands that you can't give people's names, right? That's sensitive information, and especially since it's not totally confirmed yet. But you keep referring to this fact that we need to have this, this month-long feedback period. But the cuts that have been proposed in the plan are based on a vision. Right? But without saying what those cuts are, we don't know what the vision is, and we can't provide meaningful feedback. So that's really problematic. I mean, this month-long feedback period is pretty performative and pointless if we don't actually have something to comment on.
Yeah, so I hope that the vision of what we're trying to build is clear enough, like in terms of the university. So and if not, then press me to. So here's what I want. I want us to, all of the Rogue Valley is the classroom, streamlined pathways in every curriculum, human-centered connection with students, a vibrant community network for everybody, interdepartmental collaboration at 100 and 200 level classes, optimizing the number of pathways for students, deconflicting course, like all of that stuff, I think I've been pretty clear. Stephen's point, you're right, about, okay, hey, what does the Business Intelligence Office look like, right? Okay, you're right, that we have to have that conversation about what that is. And I'll look to Carson to explain that for everybody. This is how we're thinking about it. There's some things, by the way, that we're still trying to sort out. Even when we look at just the issue I said with the deans, right? If we have one dean of faculty, how are the budgets going to be managed, right? Because I see the dean of faculty really working on the personnel side of things and working with the chairs on personnel things, but not necessarily now one person doing everything that 5 people did before, because that's probably not feasible. And chairs probably aren't going to want to do all of that. So the question is, the business officers, the business intelligence office, how does that all work? I think that's a fair question that we have to kind of work out. To Melissa's other point, and it's something we should discuss, is the way, so there's two, with both union partners, there are processes that have to take place. And so part of the not talking and giving specific names is because there's a, and I'm not the expert on this, there's a conversation that happens between the university and SEIU. There's a conversation that happens between the university and APSOU, and where there are, and two very different processes that happen, right? So in APSOU, it's a very specific process where the union can make comments on, hey, this plan starts to identify you're doing this. Have you thought about this? And by the way, it's not a bad process. That's good for the university, for us to be open to those things. With SEIU, among other things, there is a real, and both unions have this, but there's a real intentionality about seniority and about how positions can affect other positions and people in those positions. And it's a really complicated process that the union has to go through in order to be fair and respectful to its members. So it's not, I mean, I know that everyone wants to know right now. I get it. But we have these collective bargaining agreements in place for a reason, and we need to follow that through. I would also say that there's part of this, if, and maybe specifically, Melissa, to your question, if there's something that we need to do specifically, hey, Rick, we need the answers to these questions, specific questions, then I'm happy to put some time in and give you exactly the things that you need to be able to offer reasonable feedback.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
We'll do an online question. We'll go, I've got like people in the queue here. Online, okay. Sage, Rod, and then we'll go Tracy. And then anyone else, you can let me know. Okay. Can you talk about how we can ensure that the university remains an employer of choice and how remaining faculty and staff would want to wholeheartedly want to stay here and be here?
Yeah, it's a good question. So even in the midst of the challenges, even in the midst of it, I go back to something that Dennis said. I wouldn't still be in service to this university if I didn't know truly that there are bright days ahead for us. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that. I really believe that. And I believe in the power of how transformative this can be. I believe in that. I also know that it's not easy. And I also know there's a lot of anxiety out there. And I know that that people have been to this rodeo too many times. I get all of that. I think ultimately everyone will have to make a choice. Ultimately. This is a vision for what we can be on the other side that makes us better able to navigate the headwinds that we're facing. It does. It does do that. But I also will understand if not everyone wants to subscribe to it. I'll understand that. I hope that we can all move in this direction, and that we can all row in that direction, and that we can all lean our shoulder into it, because it won't be easy. But on the other side of it, we will be in better shape than everyone. And so it's a question for everyone to take on their own. Thank you for the question.
I don't know that mine is a question more than a reflection and statement. Make sure I'm in the mic. When I reviewed, especially the business services portion, it immediately made me feel like we're making an unforced error. Self-injury, again, that we did in 23. Instead of doing what we needed and what was necessary at the time, which was to actually staff up, as we did a massive migration of our business services to Workday, we decimated that department by more than half. And now we're looking to do that again in a time where the whole reason we're here is because we didn't know we had a $15 million budget hole. So that's telling me we don't have enough people looking at the books.
Yeah.
And now we're going to do it again. And that really, really concerns me in our continuity of service, oversight, responsibility, fiduciary responsibility. And then the only way to ensure that the work continues is if that work gets pushed down to people like me, that the people in the department start purchasing and billing and doing all. That is the only way we do that.
Yeah.
And that's a grievance. I will file that. That's not in our job description. And we cannot cut our way. It's not going to work that way. That one hurts. And I hear some of the academic concerns, faculty and all of that. I will point out, as I advocate for my own, we are now going to be an art department with a BFA program with one full-time faculty with no continuity to the program as we rotate through adjuncts in teaching. I don't know how that's, I don't know how that's doable. I just don't.
So thank you, Sage. So let me say two things, and because let's start with your second one. It gets back to Tom's question. If it's not feasible, and it's just not realistic, then I think we have to have that conversation, right? But it's probably not. That's also going to lead to a tough decision too. And I'm open to and I'm open to accepting and taking responsibility for that call. Because I don't want to put the burden on one person to have to, because you're right, that's the other one. I'll look to Carson and I'll just say that's on our to-do list just from today's discussion is what is realistic. Now I also want to be clear, if it is, hey, you know what, we have to put 5 people back in that plan, then it's okay, where else are we taking? Like, then tell me where that is. Let's have that conversation. And because your point about the awareness of the crisis is real. I completely agree with that. And we can't allow that to happen down the road. We have to at least have that level of awareness. So that's something we'll take for action. Yeah.
Mine is less of a question, but I'll verbalize it as a question. In administration and management, who are the parties that have the wherewithal, the experience, the knowledge, the expertise to implement the changes that we're going to need to implement in each of these departments and each of these situations? Who are the people that know how to do this, that are going to make good change in a really bad situation?
Yeah, it's a good question, Rod. So, this is the way you answered the question is the right way to answer. It's the right way to ask it.
It's really more of a statement.
Yeah, because it is because it'll be a work in progress, right? I can put the mirror on the institution and say, okay, look, change management's always hard. We've kind of been in constant change for the last 5 years, maybe longer. In consultation with the state. And the board, there was, okay, you know what, you actually need a project manager to actually put this, to take it from one, but that's institution-wide. Your question is actually a more important question, is because in every specific functional area, and by the way, not just every administrative functional area, but in every academic area, right, there's how do you actually get from this place to this place? Workshops will help, for sure. But operationalizing it is a different piece, and that is something that I'll have to noodle on. And really, maybe it is, how do we take project management and create an ethos that is actually something that is embraced across the campus? It's a good point.
Yeah, hi, Rick. Hi. I'll share my thoughts about our program at another time more directly, because I'm quite concerned about several components of losing half of international programs, because there's only 2 of us. Yeah. And the plan clearly designating who that is, because we're different classifications as well. So surprise. But I am also really, I saw before coming here the Vitality Plan implementation schedule that's now listed online. And we've been hearing now for quite some time of we've got a year to get this done. We've got, over the course of the next year. And yes, the term over the course of the next year means tomorrow plus 12 months from tomorrow, right? But I guess I was really, really dismayed. Oh. Oh, goodness, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I was really dismayed to see what feels like a very aggressive timeline for this. And I actually brought it up in the coffee talk right before this, and I said, hey, I need a gut check, because over the course of the next year, we're gonna provide grace to the people that we're losing, and support them through this kind of a transition. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, Tracy. It's okay.
And the response is always like, oh, well, if you're in this union, you have 20 days. But faculty need a year because it's so much harder for them to find a new position. There are also staff like myself who has 24 years of a very niche situation that it's going to be very hard for me to find another position, probably out of state. And it's going to take time for that as well. So when I'm looking at this implementation schedule, and it has, just going by these numbers, 18 possible staff lost this summer, 12 in the fall, and then 12 in 2027. And I'm seeing, 3 faculty and 3 faculty in the same time that there's 30 staff. I guess I would ask why it's so aggressive of a time schedule when we do have time to have everything fully implemented and we're getting the funding from the state. I guess I'm not clicking in my brain why it's so super aggressive. And does it have to be, or can there be more support?
Yeah. No, it's a fair question, Tracy. What I don't want to do is I don't want to create a rift between faculty and staff on this. I know you're not. I know you're not. I know you're not. You bring up a very good point. I mean, faculty do have a very specific hiring timeline. But you're right, for a lot of staff, there also is a very niche, especially for very specific areas. We're balancing everything. That implementation timeline is part of the accountability mechanism, right? It's part of we know that we have to hit these targets with the state. And we also know that we have, and the Deloitte report also kind of shared this, we're threading a needle, and it's pretty tight. So we're not in a place, even with the funding from the state, we're not in a place where we can say, you know what, we're going to hold everyone until summer of 27. That would be great. That's my perfect. What I will say is that we'll look at every, and this is something, by the way, I know this is something that HR is already thinking about too. We'll look at every position in this, and we'll look at, again, we're still going through this next month or so, but we'll look at every one of those positions. We'll look at what that timeline looks for. We'll look at, hey, where this individual is, what is the burden that's placing on them, and how hard is it going to be for the transition? I don't want to overpromise, other than to say we will look at every single person in that case, and what we'll take away from this discussion is mindful of that it's not just faculty who are going to have a hard time with that transition. I think your point is well taken, and we'll look at it.
Hi, Rick. Do you want to do an online?
Sure.
We have about 4 that are kind of around the same theme.
Okay.
Has there been any evaluation of reductions or restructuring at the executive and senior level leadership, as well as an overall cost-saving strategy associated with that? If so, could you speak about that in any way?
Yeah. I will say in every, and by the way, I'm open to criticism on this. In every, in SOU Forward, in the resiliency plan, and even now with Vitality, we looked at every, and I've looked at every position that we have here, and looked at the responsibilities and looked at what we had to do, looked at what we still have to do. In terms of the executive footprint, there are still, the plan even mentions some of it. It's not just the deans, but looking at in some of the functional areas and partnerships that we're building with Eastern Oregon and Western Oregon. There are potentially some things that will change our administrative footprint, that will reduce our administrative footprint in the executive. So I'm open to all of those things. By the way, well, no, that's going to sound self-serving. Every position, every single position at this university was looked at. I'll put it that way.
We have a lot of things that we're doing implementations on and restructuring all at the same time.
Yeah.
Do we have any process of how this is going to be done, along with us, downsizing in our number of personnel and faculty all at the same time? Because we're asking the faculty to take on 44 persons per classroom. Do we have any structure for how these things are going to look going forward and how it affects the new students coming in as well?
Yeah, great question, Luana. So that's a lot of the work and the workshops that'll happen this summer. So I think our goal is to be able to, what we did and what the board is going to consider on Thursday is a very kind of big skeleton. This is what Tracy mentioned, the big kind of a big skeleton, and it's a ballpark to start about how that structure might work. I think the details of how we change these processes are things that we'll continue to work on through the summer and have more. Let me say this though, it's not, and your question is a good one, it's not just a process. It's not just a process change. It's in many ways it's a cultural change too, right? We're asking us to do some things fundamentally differently than we've ever done before, and that's a for an organization that might be bigger than any process change. So we'll have to be mindful of the project management side of just that cultural change as well. Good point. Sam?
Hi.
Hi.
Again. So something that I remember at one of these previous conversations that got brought up was how one of the reasons we're also losing money is the drop of enrollment. And Chris brought up a question, how are we going to go forward with like marketing and stuff? And you also mentioned today how a lot of students aren't registering for fall because of the learning curve that is Workday. So I'm just wondering, with this current plan and everything, has there been any discussion on how to keep enrollment numbers up on top of cutting? Because that's another big factor too, is this is about serving students.
Yeah, great question. So let me give you 4 off the top of my head. One is that, by the way, none of these are a panacea, right? These are all kind of initiatives that hopefully together. One is that, and this was a decision that was made about 1.5 years ago, but there is a new SOU website that'll be put in place. This will be late summer, early fall. The design of that website has one primary goal, and it is student recruitment. Like the whole website is designed around attracting students in. Number 2 is a decision that our Board of Trustees made, and this was early, I think it was in January, to take a specific set of funding to partner on very specific targeted marketing to students. And so that process is now underway. Number 3 is grassroots. So, and this came from one of the town hall events that not the ones that we did. It was one, I think it was at the library in Medford. Was anyone there for that? So there was a big kind of a discussion, and that issue came up, right? How do we with the challenge that we have in the press? By the way, I'm hoping, not just because we have press in the room, I'm hoping that we're talking about transformation and not just, hey, SOU is cutting. Like that is really harmful, right? Especially as we're trying to bring students into the system. I really hope that people look at this for what it is and look at it for the transformative effect that it is. But one of the things that came out from that Medford Library town hall, and it came from a former SOU president, it's a good idea, was, hey, you know what, it's election season. And so everyone has all these yard signs down that. We need yard signs that say, I support SOU. So we now have them being made. We're going to use, hopefully they don't know this yet, but we're going to use our friends at Rotary to distribute it all across the valley and make sure that people are giving that visible manifestation of their support for the institution to start to kind of change the dynamic. And then the fourth thing I'll say is, so things like that. Fourth thing I'll say is, it's not just about bringing students in, and you're right, it's also about keeping the students that we have, right? And so how are we engaging with them in ways that continue to build their confidence that there is a pathway to the graduation stage with us here. So all those things are in play.
I do want to do a time check real quick,
Yep.
so maybe we have time for one or two more.
Yes. Hi.
Hey, Rick.
Hi.
So one question I have, and you just hit on it, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you hit on it,
Yeah.
These things that you talked about, we've done previously about retention and stuff like that. How are we looking at, and I'm going to say it out loud because it's the elephant in the room, how are we looking at the negative publicity that we have had since your letter in February?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, being the service center manager, I've had to answer calls with suppliers who think we're closing and
Yeah.
thinking they're not going to get paid. I don't think we've done a good enough job to clarify that to people, and I think that's scaring students away.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jason. Let me. I'm gonna, actually, because we're already at 2:30. Let's, if that's okay, this will be our last question. Let me flip it, because it's a really good way for us to finish. And this is gonna sound, selfish, and it's not. It can't just be me saying it. I need all of you to say it too. All of us, all of you have connectivity with students. All of you do. And I know that you're doing this now. I think we all have to. Sing from the same score. I think we all have to do everything we can to make sure that people know. What I did in Salem yesterday is said we have a plan that is disciplined, transformative, implementable, and thorough. And that it's why I said at the commencement, hey, this is our 100th commencement since we opened on this new location. This is our 100th commencement. And we are students, faculty, staff, community committed that we're going to be here for 100 more. Like we have to start saying that publicly. I'm asking all of you to help me carry that message because you're right. It's the ball game for us. Students have to know. By the way, for all of the challenges of this plan, and there are plenty, and for all of the risks of this plan, and there are plenty, there are transformative things in this plan that are so laser student focused and student centered and trying to get them the best pathways that we can and really redefine what a public regional university can look like to navigate the headwinds that are coming. This is a vision to do it. But we all need to, one, we all need to make this better if we can. And then two, we all need to promote the heck out of it, right? And reassure students that there is a path for them here, because there is.
Rick, I just want to say, just as I listen to you talk, there are two major sections to this thing. One, that you just said, they need to be separated. We need to have something focused on what you're talking about that's a transformational experience for students.
Yep.
Just that. So we don't
Yep.
have all that other word salad that's in there. No insult to anybody that put word salad. And then the other half of this has to be an operational plan,
Yep.
piece by piece, that tells us how each one of these items is going to be achieved and who's going to do them. And the thing is, we need that relatively quickly.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, we have to translate this strategy into action. Totally agree. Okay, hey, if there are others who wanted to share questions, just send me an email or President's office, and we'll get to all of them. I definitely want the follow up from Melissa, and I think we have some discussions with Stephen and Sage. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate you taking the time. Okay. Okay.